play many games with the scripture readings each week. Some of them help me to process what's taking place in the text. Some of them just offer me a distraction and I don't get done what I need to as quickly as I should. But I play them nonetheless. One of the ones that I play, and I played it this week, is that when Jesus tells a story or Jesus tells a parable, I ask myself, why did he set it in the place he said it? Why did he choose this particular setting? And how does that in any way relate to me? Why? So I did that this week. I asked myself, why would Jesus set the story of the Good Samaritan on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho? Let me tell you a little about that road. It drops 2,000 feet in 20 miles. You can't go straight down to do that. It's a crooked and difficult passage. It's very rural, and there are caves along the way. There are many, many places to hide, and there are places where if something were to happen to you, there are many places, if something were to happen to you, even though it may be minor, you might die there. In other words, the Jericho Road is a treacherous way. I pondered that for a little bit as I thought about this fellow who had gone along that way and been beaten and robbed and left for dead. And I began to realize that there was a certain brilliance in Jesus choosing this place. Not just because it highlights his story. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that there's a Jericho Road everywhere we go. Every small town and large city in which I live had a Jericho Road. It was that street or that neighborhood or that community where you did everything you could to avoid it. You knew better than to go there. Because something would happen to you and it wasn't going to be good. Every city and town where I've lived has had a Jericho Road. The Jericho Road is that road where black men don't drive down it if they can help it because they may get stopped for not having a broken tail light. That's the Jericho Road. The Jericho Road is that way that young woman walked, and that place she went where she drank too much and someone said no was yes. And this week, we named a street in Dallas the Jericho Road. The Jericho Road are all of those places where we know better than to go. But you know, sometimes you've just got to go that way. You've just got to wind up there. Now, there's the tendency among us, I think, often to look at someone and to say about this fellow that was walking along the Jericho Road, he knew better Everyone knows what the Jericho Road is like. He knew better than to walk that way. He got what he deserved. Or he knew better than to drive down that road. He deserved what he got. Oftentimes we find ourselves blaming other people, blaming the guy by the side of the road. We blame them for what has happened to them, for knowing that in our life we will do everything we can to avoid it. There were other characters in this story, not just the Jericho Road and this fellow who was beaten. As he's lying there in the ditch, two people walk by. A Levite and a priest. And let's be clear, they each had an ideal reason, a very good reason not to stop. Both of them. They would be defiled by the blood. If he were dead and they touched him, they would be defiled by a dead body. All very good reasons. But they walked on by. And then up walking this road comes the enemy, the hated one, who hates them too. And what does he do? He stops and he bandages the guy up, loads him up, takes him to town, puts him up and says, I'll come back and pay for his tithe. And I'll pay for his healing. The Jericho Road is a scary place to go. Martin Luther King, the day before his assassination, preached his last sermon. Want to guess what the text was? The Good Samaritan. It's not unusual. He had preached on that text many times. But he raised something that I think is perfect for our consideration. He says if you're walking the Jericho Road, you come across a fellow in the ditch, there are two questions. The first question was asked by the two guys that passed by. What will happen to me if I stop? Fair question. Fair question. What will happen to me if I stop? The Samaritan, he said, asked the second question. What will happen to him if I don't? What will happen to him if I don't? Jesus told this parable because a man asked him, who is my neighbor? And Jesus responded in story by basically saying to the lawyer, wrong question. The question is not who is your neighbor. The question is how are you a neighbor? I think that for you and me, Martin Luther King's questions offer for us a way to answer that for ourselves. How am I a neighbor? What would happen to him if I